Hello and welcome to this broadcast on M4S TV. My name is Toyin Ibitoye. I'm a sports broadcaster and a consultant. I will be talking briefly on some issues around Nigerian football, primarily around three issues of interest to Nigeria, Nigerian football particularly. Of course, let me highlight to you some of the things I'll be talking about. I will want to just speak briefly about the contract situation of the Super Eagles coach, Eric Schell. Of course, for those of you who have been following the story of Eric Schell and the Nigerian Football Federation, you will know that in the last couple of days, one issue has dominated discussions, and that is the renewal of the contract of Super Eagles coach Eric Schell. Is he going to stay? Is he going to extend his contract? We'll find out in the next couple of days, but I'll talk about it very briefly as well. And of course, another issue that I'm sure a lot of people have been talking about and we've been waiting eagerly to see the end of is the FIFA verdict on the eligibility issues around Congo DR and the protest by Nigeria after the last World Cup playoffs in Morocco late last year. There's been a lot of stories, there's been a lot of reports published online, some accurate, some not accurate, but it is what it is. I'll talk briefly about it as well in this broadcast. And of course, the last but not the least will be the situation of the Nigeria Premier Football League. What is the state of domestic football in Nigeria, particularly our top flight league? But as we, get to the business end of the season, we are now approaching the final part of the season. March day 26 played a few days ago. We are approaching March day 27 this weekend. And don't forget that after March day 27, we'll have just about 11 March days to the end of the season. So we'll talk very briefly about it in this broadcast. And I invite you to also comment and maybe send your reactions to some of the issues as we discuss them in this broadcast. So let me start with the first one. Of course, the major issue, one of the major issues that has dominated sports and discussions in Nigeria and beyond is the situation of Super Eagles coach Franco-Malian Eric Schell. He's been in the news. Earlier in the week, there were different kinds of reports, some linking him with the job at French club Olympique Marseille. But not too long ago, a few hours ago, Olympique Marseille finally decided on who their new coach will be. And guess what? It's former Senegalese international Abi Beye, who has been announced as the new coach of Olympique Marseille. So Nigeria's Eric Schell, in quotes, will not be going to Olympique Marseille. But those stories dominated the headlines, and a lot of people were wondering if Eric Schell would dump Nigeria and move to the French Ligue 1, or will he stick to Nigeria? But that's been settled now. But arising from all of it has also been the issue of the contract renewal of Eric Schell. Remember that his contract with Nigeria will be expiring very soon. And based on what he's been able to do in the last 1 year that he's been with the Super Eagles of Nigeria, there's been a lot of discussions about whether his contract should be renewed or not. Well, to the neutrals, I think the fact that Eric Schell led the Super Eagles to the last Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco earlier in the year, from December to early this year, and the Super Eagles had an impressive showing, has somehow made him a darling of a lot of football fans across Nigeria and beyond. And so that impressive performance of the Super Eagles has given Eric Schell some powers to be able to negotiate a better contract for himself. So there's been a lot of reports online and in all kinds of platforms about the conditions, the new contract that Eric Schell wants to sign with the Nigerian Football Federation. One thing we know for sure is that the Eric Schell project looks like a good project based on what we saw at the last Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. Nigeria didn't win that tournament. Nigeria finished third, and we've had better performances in other AFCONs even before this one. But something stands out from the AFCON in Morocco. the Nigerian team played with a lot of spirit. They played with a lot of excitement. They played with a lot of zest, a lot of passion, and they endeared themselves to the Nigerian people. They played with the Nigerian spirit, and that has opened up, you know, the love that Nigerians have for their darling team. And so everybody has been talking about allowing Eric Schell to continue. In fact, a lot of people believe that if Eric Schell was in charge of Nigeria when the World Cup campaign started for the 2026 World Cup that will be taking place later in the year, the story probably would have been different. Nigeria wouldn't be needing the playoffs. Nigeria probably would have qualified automatically. That's how well and how highly Eric Schell's performance is being rated. But one thing is also very sure about Eric Schell. Eric Schell looks like he has developed interest for his job. He loves his job. He's bonded well with his players. He has a good relationship with his employers, the Nigeria Football Federation, and is also loved by the supervising National Sports Commission. So everybody seems to be on the same page with Eric Schell and the fact that he needs to continue on his job. In fact, a few weeks ago, the president of the Nigerian Football Federation said that Eric Schell and the Super Eagles have a bright future together. What other confirmation do you need that the NFF want him to continue? But can the NFF meet up to whatever new demands it comes up with? Only time will tell. One thing we also can be sure of is that Eric Schell is enjoying his work in Nigeria. He loves to travel to watch local football, the Nigerian League, the Cup games. And then, of course, he loves to relate with Nigerian coaches. So he's enjoying his time and he's enjoying his bond with the players and he's enjoying relationship with our football and the coaches. And he believes that he has a project that should be allowed to continue. But what do you feel as a neutral, as an interested stakeholder in Nigerian football? What do you feel about the Eric Schell situation? Should he continue on the job? Do you think he's done enough to merit having his contract renewed? And one of the conditions that he has set out is that he wants a free hand to work. What do you think about it? Let's hear from you and see how much of an influence he will have in helping us to decide whether to keep Eric Schell or to ask him to go. All right, let me talk about the second issue very quickly. And that issue has been a very naughty one. It's been dominating headlines since late last year. It's the issue of Nigeria and Congo DR. After the World Cup playoffs, the Nigeria Football Federation protested against some of the players used by Congo DR during that playoff. The appeal of the Nigerian Football Federation is that some of these players are not eligible to play for Congo DR. And that case has been on FIFA's table for such a long time. Earlier in the week, there were speculations that the verdict will be reached, you know, but up till now we are waiting. No one is sure. Everybody is hoping. Nigerians are hoping and praying it goes in their way. Congo DR are also hoping and praying that it goes in their way. But this is a very important case in world football. We've had issues around the eligibility of players in the past. We've had pronouncements. Last year, we had the issue of Malaysia that got banned by FIFA for using ineligible players. And the Nigerian Football Federation believes that the issue is very, very close and similar to the issue of Congo DR. And so Nigeria should be getting a favorable judgment. But we will find out in the next couple of days how this will pan out for Nigeria. If it favors Nigeria, that means we will have to start to get ready for the Intercontinental Playoff next month in Mexico, where the winner of the game between Jamaica and New Caledonia will be the opponent of the Eagles. Just one game. If you win, you go to the World Cup. Will it be Nigeria? Will it be Congo DR? We'll find out in the next couple of days as we await the verdict of FIFA to see how this will pan out. But one thing is very sure. Whatever pronouncement is made by FIFA will be challenged by the appeals committee and, of course, by the Court of Arbitration for Sports. So FIFA needs to make that announcement very quickly because there are still so many steps to be taken and to be cleared before that Intercontinental Playoff takes place in March in Mexico. Well, we keep our fingers crossed and wait to see how everything will pan out at the end of the day. The final issue I like to talk about in this broadcast has to do with domestic football in Nigeria. It has to do with the Nigeria Premier Football League. The Nigeria Premier Football League is now at the business end. March the 26th, as I said earlier, were played last weekend. We are looking forward to seeing March day 27 this weekend. And the Nigeria Premier Football League is 38 weeks. So when you have March day 27, it tells you that you have just about 11 games left for the season to be wrapped up. And because we are now getting close to the end of the season, the desperation for points is become a lot more, difficult to deal with. Teams have become more desperate for points, and it is rolling over into violence at some of the venues. Let me just give you a list. In the last few match days of the Nigeria Premier Football League, we've had incidents of violence, either large scale or small scale, in a number of venues. We've had on a small scale in Lagos, in Ekene, was a larger scale in Ekene. It was a fallout of what happened in Lagos between Ikorodu City and Remo Stars. It rolled over into Ekene, the reverse fixture, and that was Remo hosting Ikorodu City. We've also had it in Bauchi in the last couple of games. We've had it in Aba, where Enyimba play, and we've had it just a few days ago in Ilorin. So you can see Lagos, Ekene, Bauchi, Abia, and Ilorin are some of the few venues that have seen some bits of violence in the last couple of match days. The ones I can remember, maybe there are more, but then what it shows is that the desperation for points is getting higher, is getting more intense by the day. And when you look at all the teams involved, you know that there are teams that are struggling one way or the other. Remo are struggling in the lower rank of the table in the relegation zone. Kwara United, the same. They are struggling. Wiki Tourist, well, they are above relegation waters, but they are not comfortable yet. So the same with Enyimba. Enyimba are also flirting with the red zone. That's the danger zone. That's the relegation zone. So you can see why there appears to be that desperation around some of these venues. But what has been the response of the Nigeria Premier Football League? The hammer of the Nigeria Premier Football League has fallen, points have been deducted, and fines have been imposed on some of the teams that have been involved in this violence. Some of them have been banished from where they've been playing to a different venue. Some have been told to play behind closed doors, but they've been fined heavily, deducted points. This season, Kano Pillars and Kwara United have been dogged 3 points, 3 goals, for violence. The number of teams that have been banished this season, let me give you the list. Katsina United, they were banished from Katsina to go play somewhere else in Kwara. They had to go and play in Ilorin, Kwara State. Kano Pillars were banished. They had to go play in Katsina. Remo Stars banished from Ekene to go play, first of all, in Ibadan. And now they are playing in Akure. They also played one game in Benin at the Samuel Ogbomudia Stadium. Wiki Tourists have been banished from their home ground. They had to play in Jos, Plateau State. And then the last but not the least, Kwara United, just a few days ago, have been banished from playing in Ilorin, their beautiful stadium, lush green grass in Ilorin. They've been banished to play their home games at the MK Abiola Sports Center in Abeokuta. Those banishments have been due to violence-related offenses, crowd trouble and all of it. So that's what we see around some of those venues. So the good job that the Nigeria Premier Football League has been doing this season with the introduction of television, live broadcast, should not be undermined. Let me also just quickly add that if you want to watch live games of the Nigeria Premier Football League, one of the places where you can see it is this app, M4S TV. Games are shown every week in the Nigerian Premier Football League, so you can do well to download the app and enjoy games of the Nigeria Premier Football League every week. All right, so we are urging the fans of all the clubs in the Nigeria Premier Football League, be of good behavior. If you want to continue to enjoy your team and watch them on their home turf and boost their chances of winning the league or surviving the drop, you have to be of good behavior. never manhandle a referee. If you do that, you are putting your team at risk, and they could be banished and fined heavily and also docked points. All right, so that's the summary of the issues I want to discuss in this broadcast. I hope you can also have your say and let us know what you think about some of these issues, and of course, see what feedback you can give us around all of these issues. All right, so thank you for watching. We'll be back on M4S TV very soon. See you next time.